A man walking in the park, suddenly, he was involved in an accident with several aliens driving drunk. When he realized, his body had experienced significant changes. This story begins with an introduction to Ichiro Inuyashiki, a 58-year-old family man who is going through a difficult time in his life. He drives his family to their new home. They got outside the house, and his daughter Mary said, "This place is amazing." When the garage door opens, and the real homeowner introduced himself and asked if they were new neighbors. After he leaves, we see their actual home, much to his family's dismay. Indoors, Ichiro's wife, Marie, suggests going out for food, leaving Ichiro to handle the unpacking on his own. His lower back pain forces him to halt, leading him to retrieve a letter from his back pocket, indicating the need for a follow-up medical examination. The following day, on his way home from work, he encounters an empty cardboard box containing an abandoned Shiba Inu. He decides to bring the dog home, despite objections from his family, who fear it might cause unpleasant odors in the house. He named the dog Hanako. In the doctor's office the next day, he received bad news about his health: stomach cancer, whose life was only 3 months left. Because he was heartbroken, he tried to contact his family, but his family ignored him. Upon returning home, he tried again to tell the diagnosis, but his family still did not care about him. He took Hanako for a walk. He was pondering, if he told them about his condition, whether to cause worries or tears from them. He arrived at a park and started to cry while hugging Hanako, the only one who really seemed to care about him. While crying, he saw a teenager standing nearby. Suddenly, the world in front of them shook, and a spaceship crashed into both of them. After that, we saw a neural network, and we could hear unknown creatures reporting about what happened. They said that their spaceship wasn't damaged, but they accidentally hurt 2 humans. They ordered for these beings to be fixed right away, even though their spaceship only had weapon units that could destroy a planet. They all agreed that it wasn't their problem and left before space police arrived. The next morning, Ichiro woke up and felt surprisingly refreshed. During breakfast, he noticed that his food tasted different, and he felt very thirsty. On his way to the doctor's for more tests, he noticed that his back didn't hurt anymore. After accidentally bumping into something, he realized that his glasses didn't have lenses, but he could still see perfectly. After getting another X-ray, the pictures showed only white around his body, which made the doctors think the machine was broken. When he was on his way home, he suddenly felt sick to his stomach. He took out his phone and saw that the screen was completely blank, which made him think something was wrong. Back in his room, he smashed his phone with a hammer, only to find out that there were no electronic parts inside, just an empty case. Suddenly, his arm started to release steam, and he got really scared. But then it stopped, and he tried to calm himself and Hanako down. When Hanako licked his arm, he got even more surprised and started waving his arm around the room. Then, everything he had eaten that day came out onto the wall. His arm went back to normal, so he decided to investigate himself by pressing different parts of his body randomly. When he touches something under his chin and presses it, his whole body opens up, and he's surprised to find out that he's now some kind of cyborg. Later that night, he goes back to the place where the crash happened, thinking about what he's become and if he's even a human anymore. Nearby, there's a homeless man who's trying to change his life, but he's being attacked by a group of teenagers. Ichiro steps in when the teens surround the homeless man and start hitting him with baseball bats. One of them hits Ichiro on the side of his head, and he passes out. The teens think they've killed him and start to go after the homeless man, but Ichiro's automatic defense systems take over. They identify all the teens and fire warning shots, scaring them away. After that, his unconscious system reveals all the personal information of the teenagers and what they did that night to the world. Later, the homeless man thanks Ichiro from the bottom of his heart. After the man leaves, Ichiro falls to his knees, crying. He realizes that he's still a human with a heart, no matter what's happened to him. Saving the man has made him feel alive again, and he decides he's going to save as many lives as he can from now on. The next day at a nearby school, we meet Hiro Shishigami. He notices that his friend Naoki Ando hasn't been at school for a few days because he was beaten up by some bullies. Hiro goes to visit him, and they talk about things like the latest issue of One Piece. Hiro jokes around, accusing Ando of being the serial killer who's been in the news lately. Then, Hiro shows Ando a cool trick he's learned, but he won't explain how he did it. Instead, they decide to go outside, and Ando tries to figure out the magic trick. Outdoors, Hiro points to a group of crows and asks Ando to watch closely.
Bang!
Hiro shoots at the crows, and they start flying away. Ando thinks he knows the trick because crows are smart and think they got shot at. But when Hiro says that the crow isn't getting away, it falls out of the sky, dead, which shocks Ando. They then head to a local TV retailer, where Hiro replaces all of the stock TV footage with lewd imagery, and none of the workers seem to know what's going on. Ando says that these are some awesome tricks that he's learned. And then they take a walk to a busy street. There, Hiro orchestrates a series of car accidents like a conductor, making all the cars crash into each other. Ando realized that Hiro wasn't using magic tricks, and now Hiro had incredible powers. Later that night, at Ando's house, Hiro revealed his full cyborg body and convinced Ando to go back to school, saying that if anyone bothered him again, he would harm them. On his way home, Hiro spun blindly in the middle of the street and picked a random house to enter without permission. Using a finger gun, he cruelly harmed everyone inside. A mother, father, and child. Afterward, he said he finally felt alive, which was different from Ichiro, who felt alive when he saved others. Their daughter came home, calling for her mother, and went into the kitchen where she found her mother's lifeless body. Shocked, she retreated into the hallway and saw Hiro standing there with a terrifying face. Hiro asked her to sit down, saying they needed to talk. She asked him what he wanted, and when he asked about the kind of manga she read, she hesitantly answered, One Piece and Attack on Titan. Fearfully, she asked if her younger brother and father were also dead. Hiro replied, Why does that matter? We're talking about One Piece. She pleaded with him not to kill her. Elsewhere, we saw Ichiro scanning the area, listening for anyone who might need help. When he heard the girl screaming for her life, Ichiro immediately got into his car and tried to reach her. However, he got stuck behind a bus and could do nothing but listen to the girl's pleas until Hiro took her life. A short while later, Ichiro found the house and was devastated by the horrifying scene. He thought to himself that what had happened was unforgivable. Why would someone do such a thing? We heard Hiro talking to himself, saying he must have missed their grandpa somehow. Without hesitation, he shot Ichiro in the head, knocking him to the ground, and began walking out of the house. As he left, Ichiro managed to leave the house as well. Sensing this, Hiro turned around, wondering what he was dealing with, before quickly leaving. Ichiro realized that he must have been the other person there on the night of the accident. A few days later, on his way home from work, Ichiro saw a group of thugs cutting in front of people waiting for a taxi. One of the polite workers waiting asked them to wait their turn, but the thugs were insulted. They dragged the man into a nearby alley, with Ichiro following closely behind. The man asked the thugs if they wanted money, but they said it was too late for that, and now they were going to harm him. The man apologized and begged for forgiveness, saying he had a wife and child. However, they didn't care and just wanted to fight. They were about to throw punches when Ichiro shouted, telling the man to take cover and that he would deal with them. He assumed a fighting stance. The thugs all laughed at him, and he attacked them with a move called the windmill. He took a kick to the stomach and countered by making one of the thugs perform a strange flip. Then, the others started attacking him too. Although Ichiro didn't have the best technique, all he needed was one good punch to send them flying backward, knocking them out. It didn't take long until all the thugs were dealt with. Back at the taxi queue, the man who was saved thanked Ichiro for saving his life, with Ichiro responding that he was glad he was okay. As he walked away, he once again listened for signs of trouble in the surrounding area. When he heard cries from a family trapped in a burning house, he figured out where the house was and worried he might be too late again. When he remembered that Hiro somehow flew away, he thought he should be able to do that too. He desperately tried to make it work, but couldn't quite grasp it until he began singing a song to himself, opening his back to reveal jets. He soared into the sky. At first, he had difficulty controlling the jets, but eventually, he reached the burning house. He went inside, pulled out the father, and after asking if anyone else was inside, the grandmother. The father thanked him, to which he replied there was no need. Then he asked them not to mention anything about him to the police or anyone else before he left. Once Ichiro got far enough away, he said to himself while crying, "Thank goodness," as he was so happy he could save them all. Elsewhere, Hiro convinced Ando to come to school and stop staying in his room all day, saying that he would protect him. When they arrived at school, the bullies eventually found out that Ando had returned. They began to try to drag him onto the rooftop to beat him up again. When Hiro intervened, telling them to stop, one of them told Hiro that he was coming to by putting his hand on his head. Hiro firmly grabbed his hand, forcing him to the ground, and told him to apologize to Ando and say that they would never approach him again. The bully reluctantly did so, which greatly surprised all his friends. Then on that day, after school, Hiro brought Ando to the roof of the school, gave him a pair of binoculars, and told him where the bullies were. Ando tried to find them. Ando asked Hiro what he was doing when he saw that Hiro had killed the nuisance. When they returned, Hiro explained his complete abilities. He mentioned that he could connect to all internet message services, fully control all electronic devices, and might even be able to send nuclear from the United States to China easily if he wanted to. That afternoon, Ando told Hiro that he could not be his friend anymore. He could not be friends with someone who killed so carelessly and told him not to approach him anymore. Hiro actually did not understand why it would bother him, but agreed with his request, telling him to just not skip school anymore before leaving. Elsewhere, on the way home from work, Ichiro walked past a cat with a small kitten next to him on the road. This made him think that he was supposed to take Hanako for a walk when he got home. Suddenly, he heard the sound of the car behind him crashing into something. Worried, he turned around and could see that one of them was hit. He immediately ran there to try to help, not know whether to fly faster or run to the nearest vet. Then he felt that he might be able to do something. He put the cat back and began to heal the wounds of the animal. The cat opened his eyes and looked completely fine before they finally left. Immediately after that, he headed to the nearest hospital and began to heal as many people who suffer from cancer and other dangerous conditions as much as he could. A few days passed, and Ando continued to hear the news about the family who died from a gunshot wound, but there was no evidence of the use of firearms. He called the police, but could not make him betray Hiro. He tried to do some research on how Hiro became as he is now. When he read the news about miracles that occurred throughout Tokyo lately, about patients with serious illness suddenly healed in an unexpected way, he remembered when Hiro first told him about his strength. Ando once gave himself a paper wound, which was soon healed by Hiro. He wondered whether it was Hiro who did this, saving the lives of some people while continuing to kill others, but he concluded that it was not something Hiro would do. Then he thought that there must be someone else out there who had Hiro's abilities, but did the completely opposite thing, helping people instead of hurting them. But Ando doesn't know how to find out if the person really exists. He remembers Hiro telling him that he can hear everything the people around him say, no matter how softly. Then, Ando began to shout for help around his room, saying that someone would kill him, and nothing happened. When the doorbell rang, we heard Ichiro, who was confused, talking to Ando's mother, asking if they were fine. Ando ran down and out, and he was amazed that there were really other people like Hiro. He asked Ichiro if he didn't wear clothes because he flew here, right? This makes Ichiro confused, then asked how he knows that. Ando invited him into his room and asked if he was a cyborg. Ichiro was surprised, but Ando told him that his childhood friend was the same. He asked Ando if he knew what Hiro was doing, and Ando admitted that he knew. Ichiro said that what he had done was an unforgivable thing, and that he had to find a way to stop him. Then, Ando asked him about the miracles that occurred in the hospital around Tokyo, wondering if Ichiro did. Ichiro admitted that it was true, and Ando considered it extraordinary, calling it a real superhero, and began to shed tears. Ando asked him to stop Hiro, that he would help Ichiro as well as possible. Ichiro admitted that maybe he should finally kill his childhood friend, then asked Ando if he still wanted to help. He answered, saying that Hiro, who was not the same as Hiro now he is just a monster. Ichiro admitted that his main reason had helped people and saved lives was because he was too afraid to face the possibility that he might have become a monster machine and had no soul. Ando said that he was more humane than anyone he had met and was willing to give his life to be able to do anything that could help him. The next day, after school, a classmate Hiro, Shion Watanabe, approached him, said that she saw Hiro defending Ando a few days ago in class, which she said was very cool. She admitted that she had feelings for him.
Arigato.
Then that night, when he was going to sleep, Hiro's mom said that she needed to tell him something. She explained that she went to the hospital earlier that day, and after some doubts, she told him that she had pancreatic cancer and seemed to have spread to her lungs too. She told him that she was only given about a month to live, and there was nothing that could be done by a doctor. She told him that when she was gone, he could go and live with his father and their family, and please don't drop out of school. He hugged his mother, crying, telling her that he would not let her die. Meanwhile, Ando went with Ichiro to an empty landfill, trying to help him hone his combat skills. They assemble a pile of metals that have been compacted to be used as targets. Ichiro only knows how to use his fist. But with Ando remembering the things Hiro said to him about how his body worked, they managed to trigger Ichiro's hand into a full cannon, which after being fired, made the metal that was compacted into a deep hole. Then at school, Hiro received a phone call and now seemed to only use his hand, pretending to have a phone from his mother, telling him that there was a miracle and now she was free from cancer. The next day, Hiro and his mother were watching news about family murder recently, where his mother asked how there could be a very cruel person, saying that someone like that should be sent directly to hell. That night, Hiro made an appointment that from now on he would stop killing people. When the morning arrived, the doorbell of the house rang. His mother left and opened it when the police broke into the house. Thank you for watching. This is part 1, don't forget to subscribe. And see you in part 2 guys.